dropdowns and Bootstrap dropdown. Whenever we are trying to access any element on the web page, there may be a chance you are having multiple options in that particular element. And out of that options, you can select your own option. Let me take to you here. This is a demo website. And whatever the way which you have been using right now, which are going to discuss how you can handle the drop downs in the same way in any website. If you want to automate anything regarding to drop down, you can use the same methods which we are going to discuss in a while. If you see, this is a drop down in this particular element, and if you click on this particular drop down, you are having multiple options. Out of these particular options, you can select whatever the option you require. So this is the drop down, and if you inspect this particular element, you are having select tag. Every drop down is having a select tag, but there may be chances, even though it is a drop down, you are not having select tag. Other than select tag, you will find multiple tags. We will see that whenever we are discussing Bootstrap dropdown. If a dropdown is having select tag, then it is a dropdown, and we can handle it by some ways in the Selenium WebDriver. And if it is a dropdown, if it is not having any select tag, then it is nothing but a Bootstrap dropdown. Very important interview question. How can you handle Bootstrap dropdown? Let me try to discuss one by one. What is a dropdown? A dropdown is a web element. It is also a web element on the web pages. Contains number of options, and we will select one option from it. If you see here, it is also a web element. When you click on this, you are just highlighting multiple options. Out of these multiple options, you are just selecting any one option. This is what the drop-down is making us to do. And it is a different element, not like a normal element. Because if it is a text box, you can find that and you can use send keys method. If it is a button, you can perform click action. But it is somewhat different to them. Every drop-down is having a tag name of select. And again, select contains different options. Each option is a web element. If you see here, if you inspect this particular element in the HTML is having select tag. And when you expand this select tag, you are having multiple options. Upon performing the click action on the drop down, you will see multiple options here. The same multiple options you see under select tag, which is nothing but it is a drop down. In the drop down, you are having multiple options. So those options are having a tag name of option. Each option is having a text, if you observe, and each option is having a value, attribute, and inner text. And by default, each option is assigned with an index value. When I say index value, always index starts from 0. First option is having 0 index value. Second option is having first index value. Third option is having second index value. Likewise, by default, we are having indexes. Index starts from 0. So a drop-down is having a selector tag name. Again, selector tag contains different options, as we are seeing here. Different options. And each option is a web element. If it is a web element, definitely you can identify it. Let me make you understand with one example. Go to PyCharm, create Python directory of day 25. In the day 25, create handling dropdown .py. If you see, whenever you want to write any automation script, these are mandatory. From the Selenium package, you need to import WebDriver module. And definitely you need to import by for specifying the locator which you want to identify. And it is very important. As we discussed, every dropdown is having a select tag. It is other than different element, I mean multiple elements. In order to handle the dropdowns with the select tag, you need to import select class from the WebDriver. Very important. In the Selenium, you have a WebDriver. In the WebDriver, you are having support. In the support, you are having select class. You need to import select class. That's what you are doing. You need to do. So by using select class, you can handle dropdown. Very easy, very straightforward. There is no confusion. I have imported that as well. In the Selenium, you have WebDriver. In the WebDriver, you have support. In the support, you are having select class. You are just importing that select class. And meanwhile, desired options, experimental option, and initializing a driver variable. And thereafter, you need to open the URL. In order to open the URL, you need to use get command. It is nothing but an application command. When you use this, it will try to open this particular URL. So the URL which I am using here is the URL which you are seeing here. And I'm just maximizing that browser window. After that, I'm trying to apply implicit wait. If there is any exception will be coming within this specified time, then definitely implicit wait will take care of. Let me execute up to here. Yes, it has opened this particular URL and it has maximized this browser window. Let me close this. And as we discussed, every dropdown is having select tag, and you need to handle this particular dropdown element, web element, using select class in the Selenium WebDriver. Select class in Selenium WebDriver. So let me do one thing. Let me take or find this particular element so that I can perform the selections. I can perform whatever the value directly by using some methods in the select class. Very important. I'm just finding that element. Driver dot find element. It's not find elements, it's find element. Because in that particular dropdown, you are having multiple options. And those are independent web elements. By dot XPath. And you're just specifying that XPath here. So before that, we can find that particular element here. Yeah. See, this is the HTML code. And instead of XPath, I can directly use ID. If you see here, instead of XPath, I can directly use ID. And I'm just specifying that value. Yes, this ID locator definitely identifies that particular dropdown. Yes. And if you see, this particular dropdown is having select tag. Definitely, in order to handle the dropdown, you need to use select class. After identifying that particular element. This is the element. This element is nothing but a dropdown. The dropdown is having select tag. Definitely, you need to use select class for handling this dropdown after finding. And there are some methods. If you are seeing here, just by common sense, you can say you can select any option here, and each option is having value attribute and as well as inner text. Each option can be selected by value as well as by inner text, or I can say visible text. You are seeing here some text. This is nothing but a visible text. And the another way is you can just select by using index value by default. So all these ways can be called by using select class in the Selenium WebDriver. So what I will do, I will just try to assign it to a variable, some appropriate variable like colors. This is some variable, and which is nothing but a select class. After finding the dropdown, I'm just applying that select class. So with the help of select class, I can try to find or click multiple options here. First thing is by using the colors variable, When I put a dot here, it will highlight all the options. Yes, select by visible text, select by index, select by value. Most of the times you will use these values. Select by visible text in order to select any value by using visible text, and by default every option is having index. Yes, you can use index, and you can also select by value. And these are some options which are introduced in the recent versions. When you select all, you can deselect all. You can deselect by value out of multiple selections. If you want to deselect some specific value, you need to use that. If you want to deselect any value out of multiple values by visible text, you can also specify that. You can select the first selected option. These are some multiple ways, but right now we will see select by visible text. It is same as this, but opposite to this particular actions. That's it. You can take this as an assignment. You can try to work as it is. And when I specify options here, it will list all the options, whatever are there in this particular dropdown. Red, blue, green, yellow, purple, black, white, violet, indigo. These are all the options. In the similar way, if you are having any dropdown in any web page, if it is having some thousands of options also, when you use this options method in this particular class, it will try to list all the options as a form of list, and you can try to print them. So what I will do first, I will try to print all the options. Print off options. So in the dropdown, which is having a select tag, I'm just assigning it to a variable, and with the help of that variable, what are all the options present in that particular dropdown, I'm just getting those options, printing those options. I can also print one by one by using for loop. Let me print that. For color in colors, print of color. So this is printing the whole options as a list, and I'm just iterating each and every value, and thereafter I'm just trying to print the text. So each option is having some text here. So I want to print that text, and I can also print what is the count of that particular options. These are all the actions which I can perform. It is as per your requirement. There is a requirement to get the count. You can also use. You can, if there is a requirement to get the list of options, you can use this. If you want to print the inner text or the visible text or the text of this each option, you can also do this. So right now, let me execute up to here. Printing all the options as a list, counting, and printing the inner text or the text of that particular option. Let me execute this one more time. Yes, it has opened this particular URL. If you see here, this is a list of options, and thereafter I'm just printing the length. Total 11 options are present. If you see here, total 11 options, starting from red to value 10. It is nothing but aqua. So total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 as well as 11. That's what it has printed. And it has printed that select object is not iterable. Means you are just iterating each and every value in the list. But the mistake which we have done is in the options we have to iterate and we have to get the text. This is the mistake we have done. Let me try to use the options here. When I use options in the colors, I am having the options. So I need to fetch each and every color option and I need to print the text here. This is what the mistake we have done. Let me execute one more time. It has opened and maximized this browser window. And if you see here, this is what it is printing. This is the list of all the options, count of the options, and each option has a text which you are seeing here, and this text has been printed in the console. So this is the first operation, capturing all the options and counting them and printing. This is the first operation which we can do on the dropdown. Another operation which I can do, selecting option from the dropdown. How you can select option from the dropdown? Every dropdown is having a selector tag. By using select class, I can try to select any of the option by using value, select by value, select by visible text, select by index. These are the options. Or common sense, I can say it is having value attribute. I can select by value. It is having visible text. I can select by visible text. By default, each option is having index. I can also select by index. Let us try to see it here. So anyway, I have assigned this drop down after identifying using find element by ID and by applying select class to a variable. With the help of this variable, I can call all those methods. Colors dot select by visible text. Colors dot select by index. Colors dot select by value. So for this, in order to make you understand, I will just use sleep here, so that whenever it is selecting, you will get to know the selection of those particular options. I will just specify 2-3 seconds before each and every selection. Right. You can select by visible text. If you see here, these are all the text. And if I want to select by any value or any option by using visible text, I can specify that value. Suppose if I want to select black, I can specify black here. If I want to select by index, each option here is by default associated with or defined with an index, starting from 0, ending from length -1. So suppose if I want to specify the index value as like some 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, it will take yellow. So I'm just specifying that 3 here. And you can also specify by value. You can also select any option by using value, or you can specify that value, suppose 8, and you need to specify that in quotes, except for index, for value, for visible text, you need to specify that in quotes. Very important interview question. How can you select options from the drop down which is having a selector tag? Or they will not ask you that it is having a selector tag or so and so. You need to understand that by common sense. Every drop down is having a selector tag. And what are the ways I can select an options from the drop down? Selecting by visible text, you can select the option. You can select by index, you can select the option. You can select by value, you can select the option. Let me comment this before lines and let me execute this. Or yeah, let me execute this. So you will see that particular dropdown is having the selection of these particular values which I mentioned. So in order to make you understand the transition, selecting from one option to another option, I have implemented just for your understanding. Let me execute it here. See, black, yellow. After 3 seconds, it is selecting indigo. In this way, you can select multiple options by multiple ways, selecting by visible text, selecting by index, and selecting by value. Very important interview question. And they can also ask you, these are the built-in methods: select by value, select by index, select by visible text in the select class. But I don't want to select any option by using inbuilt method. I want to select an option without using inbuilt method. They can ask you to write the logic for this. Up to now, you are using the inbuilt methods to select any specific option, but I don't want to use inbuilt method. I want to write logic. How I can write? Observe here very carefully. In the colors, nothing but in the selected tag, you are having multiple options. What you can do? For color in colors dot options, you need to get the options. In the selected tag, you are having multiple options. You are just getting that options here. Dot options. When you specify dot options, definitely to try to get all the options. And each option is having some text. What you can do? If you can specify if color dot text, nothing but inner text. You are just checking color dot text is equal to some white. Just perform on that color click action. So if my condition is satisfied, you just come out of the loop. I want only that selection. I don't want any another selections. You can use this simple logic. In the drop down, you are having multiple options. You are capturing that drop options, and you are just iterating each and every color or each and every option. And each and every option is having some text. Nothing but when I say text, nothing but inner text. When that inner text is equal to my requirement value or my required value, you just perform a click action on that particular color option. And once my selection is done, come out of the loop. For coming out of the loop, I can use break statement. This is what we have discussed earlier. It's just a simple logic. Instead of these default methods or built-in methods, you can use in this way also. Very easy. Let me execute it one more time. My requirement is to select white option. Yes, it has selected the white option. So internally, it will try to fetch all the options. It will try to check whether the inner text is having white or not. Internally, it will perform the click action. So that is what you are seeing here, the white. Or you can also specify violet here. I don't want white. I want violet. After maximizing browser window, it will perform the required operation. Yes, there is some internet issue, I think so. It has not selected. Reason? It is not having this particular value. There is some value mismatch. Let us try to see that. So I want violet. So I can specify it here. See, I have specified the wrong value. So that is the reason it has not checked that value. Just now I am giving the right value. Let me close this previous browsers. Let me execute it one more time. If you see here, violet has been selected. In this way, without using inbuilt methods also, you can try to select a specific option from the dropdown. This is nothing but the dropdown having select tag. Let me walk through another website. It is some dummy website which I have taken for your understanding. And if you see here, in this particular website, you are having this particular dropdown. Or you can scroll down again. You are having a country dropdown. In the country dropdown, you are having multiple options. If you try to identify or inspect this particular element in the HTML code, if you see here, it is not having select tag. Very important. Up to now, we have seen the dropdown having select tag, but it is also a dropdown in some other website, but it is not having select tag. And if you see here, in the HTML code, even though you identified, you are not getting all the options. When you perform the click action, you will get all the options highlighted. This is nothing but a Bootstrap dropdown. Very important. Let me refresh it one more time. Let me make you understand another time. Try to listen it very carefully. Country is a dropdown. Yes. In the dropdown, definitely you need to have options. Agreed. But when you perform the click action, you see here, this is the dropdown which we identified. And after performing the clicking action, then only we will get to know all the options are highlighted. Let me try to inspect any particular option here. See, these are all the list options which are highlighted. Upon performing the click action, until unless you will not get anything. So how can you work with the dropdown without having select tag? Very important. Before that, let me make you understand with some important points. Bootstrap dropdown. It is a different kind of element, or I can say a dropdown, which does not have a select tag. Just we are just seeing here. This is the dropdown. It is not having any select tag. The Bootstrap dropdown is an enhanced part of the dropdown. It is an enhanced of to this normal dropdown, where we will deal with user list. That is what we are seeing here. When you inspect any particular option, each option is having a list tag. See, and inside the list you are having multiple attributes. You are not having the value also. But if you want to use select by value, select by visible text, select by index methods, definitely that drop down needs to have select tag, but it is not having select tag. How we can try to interact with that drop down? We'll see in a while. And other than select tag, you are having these tags: user list, div, span. In simple, you can say other than select tag. If you are having any tag, then it is nothing but a Bootstrap dropdown. To handle this kind of dropdowns, we have to use find elements method. So when I use find elements method, find elements, nothing but I'm just finding multiple elements. What are those multiple elements? These options are nothing but multiple elements. And if you see here, all the options are enabled upon clicking the dropdown. This is what we have seen earlier. When I click a dropdown only, all the options got enabled, until unless it has not enabled. So after identifying this particular dropdown, I need to perform the click action, and I need to use find elements method for capturing all the options in the dropdown. And as like here, you will iterate through each and every option, and you will check whether the text is equal to the text which you required, and you can perform the click action. This is the logic which we are going to use in that Bootstrap dropdown. Let me close this. Let me create another module of Bootstrap dropdown. It is very important to have all the packages in place. WebDriver, desired options, and get. In the get, we are just specifying the URL which I want to open, and it is the important phase. After maximizing the browser window, I need to identify this particular dropdown, and after identifying, I need to perform the click action. Let me identify this particular element so that I can use for clicking action. This is the HTML code. In the HTML code, you are having span as a tag name for this dropdown, and you are having ID, class, role, title as well. What I will do, I can use ID here. Let me take this ID. Control C, Control F. Let me check here if I am, yes, only one match is fine. I can find the dropdown. Driver dot find element. It's not find element. After finding the drop down, I need to perform the click action. Then only I will get all the options enabled. So in order to catch those options, I can use find elements. This is what the way we are implementing. By dot ID. I'm just specifying the locator here. And this is the drop down. And in the drop down, I'm just performing the click action. If I perform the click action, it will enable all the options. So I need to catch these multiple options. How you can catch? When you perform the click action, yes, all the options are highlighted. So in order to capture each and every option, definitely you need to identify those options. Take this pointer, click on any option. You can see all the options are highlighted. You can take any of the locator, general locator, which will find all the options. If you see here, let me scroll up. In the user list, you are having multiple options. So in the user list, I can use UL tag name and I can use the ID as well. And inside this element, I'm having multiple elements. So what is the locator which I can write? If you can see here, you are having UL, yes, and UL element is having ID at the rate ID is equal to. I can just identify that again. If you see here, it is having this particular value for the ID. Just using that. No, I need to use all the values. Yes, for that specific attribute. Otherwise, it will not try to identify that element. Yes, this is the whole value. And I'm just closing the square bracket. And inside that particular UL, I am having multiple LIs, nothing but multiple options. I'm just using that. And you need to specify double forward slash. Yes, if you see, these are all the options which are highlighted. I have total 249 options. And you can use this particular locator and you can use driver dot find elements. Driver dot find elements by dot xpath. And in the xpath, you can specify the locator which you have written. And you need to assign it to a variable like options. I can just assign it to a variable. And with the help of this, what I can do first, I can just print how many options are present. Length of options. Yes. This is the length of options. And in each and every option, there is having some text. If you see here, this is the one of the option. For this one of the option, it is having inner text. What I will do, I will try to iterate each and every option. I will try to check whether my option is equal to my required value or not. This is what the logic which we have used here. I will use the same logic here only. So that even though it is not having any selector tag, I can try to identify any element. So for opt in options dot, in the options I'm having just options, right? Or you can say this itself says multiple options. So I don't want to use again options, because if I am using selector tag, definitely I need to use options for getting all the options. But meanwhile, I'm just finding those options by using this particular xpath. And each option is having a text. If opt dot text, text means inner text, is equal to India. I'm just specifying India. This is my requirement. In this particular dropdown, I want India to be selected. Or you can specify any other value. After India, you can try to see that particular option got selected. And we will also try to see another option as well. This is the logic which we are implementing. And if that value is matched, if that inner text is matched, you need to perform the click action. And thereafter, you need to come out of the loop. I don't want to select multiple options. I want only one option. I need to be selected. So I'm just printing the total options, just checking that inner text. If it is equal to my required value, just perform the click action. and come out of the loop. That's it. This is the operation which we are doing. Let me execute it so that you will get to know. Yes. See, it has clicked that particular drop down and it has selected India. Similarly, instead of India, we can specify any another value like, Japan. Let me try to specify it here, Japan. But meanwhile, you can observe here how many options we have got. 249 options. I'll specify Japan here. We'll see. Or you can just identify it here. Identify it is having Japan. Yes, let me specify that. I'm not sure whether it is a capital J or J, or let me execute it here or to see that so that we can get to know. Japan. Yes. Let me execute or identify this here. You can see here it is having capital J only. Yes, I have specified that I want Japan to be selected. After selecting the Japan, I need to perform the click action and I need to come out of the loop. Let me execute it one more time. Yes, it has selected Japan and it had performed the click action. Thereafter, it has come out of the loop. So that is the reason why it is selected Japan. In this way, you can interact with dropdowns as well as Bootstrap dropdown. Again, when the dropdown is having selector tag, you can use selector by visible text, selector by index, selector by value. Instead of built-in methods, we can also use inner text, just checking that inner text is as per my requirement or not. And coming to Bootstrap dropdown, if the dropdown is not having selector tag other than selector tag, if you find any tags like ul, user list or list, div tag, span, etc., then it is nothing but a Bootstrap dropdown. You need to handle that Bootstrap dropdown by using find elements method. Find elements will capture all the options and you can check each option text is equal to my required value or not. And if it is equal to my required value, I can perform click action and I can use break to come out of this for loop.